Welcome to part 5 of a 5-part R&A's deep dive series,
The Genesis Project, creating an e-commerce site.
the system mindset.
And, we have finally made it to the absolute end of this build.
We really have. Looking back through our stack of architectural research and, our own internal design notes, it's been a massive undertaking.
Absolutely. And, if you've been tracking this journey with us from the very beginning, you remember we started with the absolute core logic.
Right, the von Neumann engine. We built the processing power, the memory architecture, basically the raw brain of the operation.
But having that brain just sitting out there, exposed on the open internet, that's basically an invitation for disaster.
Oh, 100% is a massive target, which is exactly why today we are building the perimeter.
And setting up this perimeter for our e-commerce site, well, it's not just some standard technical checklist.
No, not at all.
It really brings up a massive architectural philosophy debate. And my partner and I actually approach this from two slightly different angles.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I definitely lean toward the philosophy of the unbreakable trust.
Right, the holistic approach.
Exactly. The idea that any network is an ecosystem. It's ultimately only as strong as its absolute weakest point of entry.
Right.
Like if you leave one tiny side door unlocked or, one employee makes a dumb mistake, the entire fortress is just compromised.
Well, I look at it from a much more structural perspective. I call it the mathematical wall.
The cold, hard numbers approach.
Precisely. The idea that modern defense isn't just about trusting the ecosystem or the people inside it. It relies entirely on cold, hard encryption, aggressive firewalls, and incredibly strict protocols.
You want to mathematically prove the doors can't be opened by unauthorized forces.
Exactly. You can't just hope they're locked.
But listen, before we can even start laying the bricks for this mathematical wall, we really have to define exactly what it is we are defending.
Right. You can't build a fortress if you don't know what the king's treasure looks like.
Exactly. And in network security, that treasure is defined by a core technical framework known as the CIA Triad.
And we're not talking about the intelligence agency here.
No. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. This is the absolute foundation of our perimeter.
Right.
If you are building an e-commerce site, literally every single piece of hardware you install.
And every line of code you write.
Yeah, it all exists solely to uphold those 3 pillars.
And translating those technical pillars into the system's implications of running an actual web store, it really just comes down to user trust.
Oh, completely.
Let's break down the real-world stakes here. Think about confidentiality.
Okay, keeping secret secret.
Right. When a user types in their credit card number or their home address, they are doing so under the strict assumption that those details are for authorized eyes only.
Right, and if that data leaks...
The trust is broken, the brand is completely destroyed, and honestly, the business just dies.
Yeah, that's game over.
Yeah.
So what about integrity?
So in e-commerce, integrity guarantees that the data hasn't been altered mid-transit.
Okay, what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, say a customer puts a $300 item in their cart. The HTTP request sent to our server has to remain completely untouched.
Right, because if a malicious actor intercepts that data stream...
Exactly. They could manipulate the parameters. They could change the price variable from $300 down to just $3 before it ever have the database.
Oh, wow. And the system would just process it as a valid transaction.
Yep. And the company quietly hemorrhages money until it goes bankrupt.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, availability.
Right. The baseline promise to your customers that the network is actually up and running.
Which is where distributed denial of service attacks come in, right?
Yeah.
DDoS attacks.
Exactly. They weaponize this pillar by flooding your servers with, millions of fake requests per second.
Just eating up all your bandwidth and processing power.
Right. So legitimate customers just get a timeout error. Your availability drops to 0. And in the digital world, if you are offline, you just do not exist.
But, my co-host, there's an inherent contradiction here, isn't there?
How so?
Like trying to maximize all 3 of these pillars at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Let's say I want to perfectly secure our web store. Maximum confidentiality, perfect integrity.
Okay.
To achieve that, I decide to lock the servers down so tightly that absolutely 0 outside traffic can connect to them.
Well, yeah, the system is perfectly secure now. It's a mathematical fortress.
Right. But we are also totally offline.
Which means you are technically failing the availability mandate.
Exactly. It's like owning a physical retail store in a really dangerous neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
And you are so paranoid about shoplifting that you decide to permanently brick up your own front doors.
Right, congratulations, you have achieved zero theft, but do you also have zero customers?
You have completely defeated the fundamental purpose of the business. You cannot build a system that is perfectly secure, because a perfectly secure system is completely unusable.
So to uphold the CIA Triad without, bricking up the doors, the system requires intelligent filters. We must let data in, but we have to inspect it first.
Which introduces the architecture of firewalls.
Exactly.
And a firewall isn't just a single magic barrier. It's a layered defense mechanism. There are two distinct technical layers that dictate how this traffic is handled: packet filtering and stateful inspection.
Let's start with packet filtering, which operates primarily at the network layer.
Okay, so imagine every piece of data coming into your e-commerce site is a letter in the mail.
Oh, I like this analogy.
Yeah, so packet filtering is essentially a security guard who only looks at the outside envelope.
Just checking the metadata.
Exactly. The source IP address and the destination port. If the return address isn't on a block list and is heading to an approved destination like port 443 for web traffic, the guard just waves it right through.
So it's incredibly fast and highly efficient.
Oh, absolutely.
But it is also entirely superficial, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because an envelope with a perfectly valid return address can still contain a bomb inside. The guard never actually reads the letter to see if the contents are malicious.
Right, which is exactly where stateful inspection takes over.
Operating much deeper up the application stack.
Yeah, it doesn't just look at the envelope, it monitors the entire ongoing conversation. It actually remembers context.
So when an external computer sends a packet of data, the firewall pauses.
Right, it checks its internal memory, which we call a state table, and asks, did our server actually request this information?
Does this packet match the sequence numbers of an established TCP handshake?
Exactly. It actively detects suspicious behavior by analyzing the history and context of the interaction, rather than just blindly trusting the return address.
But this introduces a massive systems implication: the friction bottleneck.
A cost of security.
Yes. Every single security check we implement costs something. In the digital world, it costs precious CPU cycles and RAM.
Because maintaining that state table requires the firewall to hold the context of every single active connection in its memory.
Right. So if our system performs stateful inspection on every single packet, opening every envelope, cross-referencing every conversation, analyzing every byte of data to the point of absolute exhaustion.
The hardware simply cannot keep up during a high-traffic event.
Exactly. The website slows to an agonizing crawl. So, as the architects of the Genesis project, we face the ultimate dilemma. Where do we draw the line?
How do we balance the fortress with the user experience?
Right, because if the site takes 10 seconds to load a product page because the firewall is overanalyzing incoming traffic, the customer just leaves and shops elsewhere.
Yeah, I always like to think of stateful inspection like an airport security line.
Oh, that's a perfect way to look at it.
Like, imagine if the security guards didn't just quickly check your ID and boarding pass, which is package filtering, but instead they pulled you aside and interrogated you about every single conversation you've had that day.
Cross-referencing your answers with a database of your travel history.
Exactly. It would be phenomenally secure.
Okay.
But it is guaranteed to bring airport traffic to a complete and utter halt.
You'd have lines backing up onto the highway.
Exactly. So you have to tune the firewall. You have to calculate the exact amount of acceptable risk to maintain that availability pillar while keeping the engine safe.
Right. But listen, we can tune the firewalls and balance the CPU cycles to ensure our internal fortress is secure all day long.
Sure.
But e-commerce does not exist in a vacuum inside our server room. For a transaction to actually occur, data has to leave our perfectly secured perimeter and travel across the chaotic, Wild West infrastructure of the internet to reach a user's phone.
The Wild West is right.
Truly. And this is where we run into the threat of the man-in-the-middle heist.
Yeah.
Because if we send data out of our perimeter without transforming it, we're walking right into a trap.
It's just out in the open.
Right. Let's trace a transaction leaving your phone right now. You hit buy on a pair of shoes. That data is not traveling through a direct private tube.
No, it bounces.
It bounces from your local Wi-Fi router to your internet service provider through a dozen different routing nodes across the country until it finally hits our server.
It's a massive relay race.
Exactly. And if that data is not encrypted, it is effectively a postcard.
Anyone can read it.
Right. Anyone sitting on that network path, like a compromised router at a coffee shop or a malicious actor tapping into a local node, can simply pick up the postcard, read your credit card number, and pass it along to the next node without you ever knowing it was intercepted.
Which is terrifying. But to solve this invisible postcard problem, we rely on the mathematical marvel of the handshake.
Specifically, TLS protocols.
Right. Transport layer security.
Mm.
This automated process ensures that before the very first byte of private data ever leaves your phone, your web browser and our server have a conversation to agree on a secure channel.
And we employ two distinct cryptographic tools to do this over an open internet, right?
Yeah, hashing and public key cryptography.
Yeah.
Let's break down hashing first.
Yeah.
Think of a hash as a tamper-evident wax seal.
I like that.
Yeah. When we send data, we run it through a complex algorithm that spits out a fixed-length string of characters. If even a single comma in the original data is altered mid-transit by a man in the middle.
The resulting hash will look completely different.
Exactly. This mathematically guarantees the integrity pillar.
But that tamper-evident seal proves the data wasn't altered, but it doesn't hide the contents. Anyone can still read the postcard.
Right. Which brings us to public key cryptography to guarantee confidentiality.
Right.
This system uses a pair of mathematical keys for every user. One is public and one is private.
Okay, break that down for me.
Think of the public key like an open padlock that we freely hand out to everyone in the world.
Okay.
When your phone wants to send us your credit card, it takes that data, puts it in a digital box, and snaps our public padlock onto it.
And once that padlock clicks shut?
Not even your own phone can open it again. The only thing in the universe that can unlock it is our private key, which we keep locked away deep inside the Genesis project servers.
That is wild.
Right. And the reason this works is rooted in the mechanism of prime factorization. It's incredibly easy for a computer to multiply two massive prime numbers together to get a gargantuan sum.
But it is practically impossible for modern computers to reverse engineer that massive sum back into the two original prime numbers.
Exactly. We are relying on the fundamental asymmetry of mathematics to act as an armored truck for our sensitive financial data.
It's brilliant because it neutralizes the internet's greatest vulnerability. The fact that everything is public and routed through countless third parties.
Right.
It fundamentally doesn't matter if there is a man in the middle intercepting the data at the coffee shop router. All they get is a locked box of randomized cryptographic noise.
Because they don't possess the private key.
Right, so reversing the prime factorization is impossible, rendering the stolen postcard entirely unreadable.
But, my co-host, I have to ask you, does this reliance on math breed a false sense of invincibility?
What do you mean by that?
Well, we sit behind our mathematical wall, assuming that because the prime factorization equation holds up, we are completely untouchable.
Okay.
But the math is actually not the problem. The fatal flaw in our perimeter, the vulnerability that can completely bypass every single mathematical wall we have just discussed, is what we call human hardware.
Ah, right. The actual flesh and blood people operating the system.
Exactly, the human element.
Which brings us directly into the realm of social engineering.
The ultimate weakness.
Right. You can engineer the most elegantly balanced stateful inspection firewall in the world. You can implement perfect, mathematically unbreakable TLS handshakes to protect data in transit.
And it is all completely useless if a user simply has a weak password.
100% useless. Or worse, if a trusted partner inside the company is manipulated. Social engineering doesn't attack the math, it attacks human psychology.
Oh, definitely.
Well,
like multi-factor authentication fatigue.
Right.
Prompt bombing.
Yes. That is such a common tactic right now.
An attacker manages to buy an employee's password off the dark web. But the company has a strong mathematical wall. They require a two-factor authentication push notification to log in.
So what does the attacker do? They wait until 2:00 a.m. and attempt to log in 50 times in a row.
Just spamming the system.
Right. The exhausted employee's phone buzzes 50 times in the middle of the night. And in a state of biological exhaustion and sheer annoyance, the employee hits approve just to make the phone stop vibrating so they can go back to sleep.
And just like that, the human hardware fails.
Exactly.
When that employee hits approve, the attacker doesn't need to break the firewall. They don't need to reverse engineer prime numbers.
They just walk right through the front door, fully authenticated.
The mathematical wall doesn't even see them as a threat because they are using completely legitimate credentials.
Right. The unbreakable trust philosophy is suddenly shattered by basic human exhaustion. All the millions of dollars spent on the perimeter architecture are undone by a tired employee on a Tuesday night.
It brings us right back to our state-of-the-art bank vault. We spent millions building the impenetrable titanium doors and the retinal scanners. But the human element just left the combination written on a sticky note attached to the front door.
The technology is perfect. The application of it is fundamentally flawed by our own nature.
Synthesizing everything we have built throughout this entire season, we are really forced to look at the holistic reality of the Genesis project.
We truly are. I mean, we started by designing the von Neumann engine, establishing the raw processing logic and the memory architecture to power this e-commerce platform.
And today, we wrapped it in this incredibly complex perimeter. We integrated the CIA Triad to define our defense.
We balanced the friction of firewall CPU cycles to maintain availability.
We initiated cryptographic handshakes to protect data in transit.
But the ultimate takeaway regarding network architecture is that keeping a system running isn't just about the physical hardware.
No, it's not.
And it is not just about the code. It is entirely about the integrity of the logic we have built and the behavior of the humans executing it.
Because if the perimeter falls, whether through a clever man in the middle who finds a zero-day loophole, or just a compromised employee handing over the keys.
The von Neumann engine sitting at the center is irrelevant. The project is compromised.
Which leaves you with a rather provocative thought as we conclude this leg of the design journey. Consider what happens to our mathematical wall in the near future.
With quantum computing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are currently relying on the extreme difficulty of prime factorization to keep our public key padlocks secure.
But when processing power takes its next massive leap...
Right. When a quantum computer can run Shor's algorithm to reverse engineer those massive prime numbers in a matter of seconds.
Will all of today's cryptographic locked boxes suddenly spring open?
It's terrifying to think about. We build perimeters based on the limitations of today's technology, but the threat landscape is always evolving. How often do you just blindly trust the mathematical wall with your credit card?
Right, without considering that a single piece of compromised human hardware behind the scenes might be holding the entire fortress together. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life cycle of an e-commerce startup. We hope you have gained insight into how a web store operates.
As always, we expect you to keep exploring and expand your minds.